7 o'clock till 10 p.m. The opening statement, first, George Galloway from the Respect Party.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Most of your viewers already know me for more than 40 years of political activity, almost 30 of those years as a member of Parliament, almost 20 of those as a Labour member of Parliament, and I hope to be back in the next Parliament putting a Labour Prime Minister into 10 Downing Street. Who knows? I may even have the casting vote if the current opinion polls are accurate. And the reason that your voters, your viewers rather, know me better than the viewers of any other channel and better than any of my opponents is because I have been at the forefront of defending the interests of the Muslims and the minorities here in Britain and across the world for almost 40 years, and almost 30 of those in Parliament. Nobody in Britain has stood up for the Muslims, spoken up for the Muslims more than me. For the last 3 years, after a spectacular by-election win, I've been the Member of Parliament for Bradford West. And that's the reason why the national and international media are focused on this contest. If I wasn't in it, trust me, they wouldn't be, because Bradford was forgotten under 40 years of Labour rule. 40 years during which the city was allowed to sink. And we won a spectacular by-election victory with a 10,000 majority, unprecedented in the circumstances, precisely because the people of Bradford West had been betrayed for too long by Labour. Now, I was in Labour a long time. I'm going to put a Labour Prime Minister into Parliament. But this is not Labour. We are the real Labour. We stand up for the things that Labour used to stand up for.
Thank you very much, George Galloway. Naz Shah from the Labour Party. Welcome.
Thank you very much for inviting us and hosting this program.
Galloway, with one of the lowest voting records in the House of Commons, how are you a voice for Bradford?
Well, can we nail this, finally, even this close to polling day? I'm in Parliament every single day.
But you don't vote in votes.
Finish. That's obvious because 78% of every mention that's ever been made in the last 5 years of Bradford was made by me, and I was only there 3 of those 5 years. I've tabled more motions in front of Parliament than any other MP in the country, and more than all of the other Bradford MPs put together. You may not have known there were other Bradford MPs, but there are. But they haven't been doing much. I can't vote sometimes because the Prime Minister's motion is as unacceptable to me as Ed Miliband's amendment.
So why not abstain? Why not go through the yes and the no lobbies?
No, I do abstain. I do abstain precisely because I cannot support either New Labour's austerity light or David Cameron and Nick Clegg's austerity heavy. I vote against every crime that has been committed by Labour and the Conservatives over these last decades. I voted against tuition fees when Labour introduced them. I voted against the trebling of them and opined oftentimes against it when the Liberal Democrats and the Conservatives trebled it. I voted against every war when Labour launched it. I voted against every so-called anti-terrorism measure when Labour and the Conservatives introduced them. I'm the one who stood against the 90 days, the 60 days, the 30 days internment without trial that New Labour introduced.
Let me ask you one more question. According to the Register of Members' Interest, you made £300,000 as various media engagements that you carry out across the world. Does that make you a part-time MP?
It's not across the world. It's not across the world.
You're in Beirut, you're in Syria, you're spending most time in the Middle East.
Look, my Russia Today television program is on a Saturday. My Press TV program is after Parliament closes on a Thursday. And my Al Mayadeen television show, which comes from London, not Beirut, is filmed at a weekend or on a Monday night during the general election, not when the Parliament is sitting. I present political TV programs, just like you. I get paid just like you. Nobody presents television programs for nothing. And if we did, the only people richer would be the owners of the television station.
Okay, I want to stick to the rules, which is I'll ask each candidate some questions and then we'll open up to general debate. Harry Booter, your party has been accused of being a racist party. Time and time again, figures within your party have either been expelled or suspended for anti-Muslim hatred. You have a member of the European Parliament, Gerard Batten, who says Muslims have to sign a pledge against violence. So why should any of our viewers even think about voting for your party?
I think Nigel Farage said it yesterday, that this racist slur that has been imposed onto the UK Independence Party is wholly unfair and uncalled for. We do not deserve this slur that has been put on there.
So all these UKIP councillors, all these UKIP... I want to focus on you and your party. You can come back and talk about your other opponents.
Let me finish. Let me
let me ask you the question. You accept that there are your candidates, they are your supporters and your members who are engaged in that racism and anti-Muslim hatred?
They are members who have joined the United Kingdom Independence Party from other parties where they previously had their home, like myself, ex-Lib Dem, and we've got people who've come from the Conservatives, the Labour, and all the other parties, except BNP, EDL, and all the other teams. We do not.
George, 1 second.
When they join us,
you accept. Let me ask you a question, because I do want to move on. And let me ask the questions of the candidates, and we'll open up to general debate, I promise. Just answer the question. Do you accept that those within your party are members who are posting anti-Muslim hatred? Your candidate in this parliamentary election from Nottingham said we should go around beating up Muslims on his Facebook page.
There are elements.
Are these some of the things that you endorse and support?
Of course I do not, and that would be a wholly unfair question to ask me. Of course I do not endorse that.
But you're standing here as you've got a role of the UKIP
I want
party.
to make this record, on the record, UKIP is not a racist party. We are not an anti-immigration party. We are not an anti-immigrant party. We are a party which says that we would like controlled immigration into this small island of ours, and that is always it. And if that makes us racist, then we are proud to hold the flag up for Britain, because these people will not speak up.
Okay, George Grant, your party has built this campaign on the long-term economic plan, that you've steadied the economy, growth has gone slowed, which you accept, and also the Prime Minister's launched this £12 billion extra in welfare cuts. Is that something you're proud of?
I think I'm very proud of the way that the economy is now compared to where it could have been. 5 years ago, we had a situation where we had a budget deficit of 11% of our GDP. There was one other country in the European Union with the same budget deficit, and that was Greece. Since that time, our economy has grown by almost 10%, and theirs has collapsed by 26%. We have created more jobs in this country than in every single country of the European Union put together. More in Yorkshire than in all of France.
Growth is slowed. It's less than the European economic
growth
zone.
In this country.
In the last 3 months, growth is slowed to the point that Europe, which you said was a basket case, is now
growth goes like this and like this. In the past 12 months, our economy has grown faster than every single economy in the
last quarter. It was 0.3% compared to European. In the Eurozone, it was 0.4%. A big difference.
Rather 0.3% growth, Shafiq, than 5% decline, which is what you're seeing in other parts. Let me just one other question on this point of welfare. We have a situation in this country where we have put in place a cap of £26,000 that can be claimed in welfare per family. That is the equivalent of £35,000 after tax, or before tax rather. The average wage in Bradford is £18,000. Under what constellation people think that in the round that is unfair, I don't know. I think we are encouraging people to move off welfare, which is a pernicious state to be in for an extended length of time, into work. And yes, I'm proud of that record.
Let me ask you also, you were working for a neocon, anti-Muslim think tank called the Henry Jackson Society. Is that something you're proud of, some of the stuff Douglas Murray and their supporters have been putting out? Is that something which you've endorsed in the past and now are trying to cover up?
No, I'm not trying to cover anything up. I'm very open. I'd worked for HGS as a research fellow, where I was asked to commission reports and write reports on a whole range of issues. Africa, Afghanistan, Libya, food security, even Scottish independence. And I'm very proud of all the work I did there. You know, any organisation is a broad church. I completely reject any claim of Islamophobia by myself. I mean, it would be a pretty stupid thing to do, wouldn't it, to be standing for Parliament in Bradford West, if there was any truth to those claims. It would be a very stupid thing to do, to move to Libya right after the fall of Colonel Gaddafi to help set up a newspaper there.
Okay. Let me ask you one final question on Libya.
Sure.
We know that last week we saw those 1,500 people being killed in the seas, and Ed Miliband and the Labour Party saying that because of your adventure in Libya, not the post-conflict planning, David Cameron left the Libyans to their own devices, and now we've got a basket case in Libya where we see a civil war happening. Do you accept that criticism?
No, I
think somebody who's worked in Libya.
I think as somebody who's worked in there and seen how the whole thing unfolded, it is much more complicated than that. I mean, we were confronted with a choice in March 2011, where Colonel Gaddafi had about 5 kilometres of tanks up the road outside Benghazi, and there would have been a massacre. And at that point, you make a judgment call in a very fast-flowing situation. Do you intervene to stop that, or do you sit back, watch yet another massacre take place, and then, as has happened so often before, you know, as the dust settles and the corpses are left strewn across the desert, wring your hands impotently and say never again?
But your party walked away from Libya.
Well,
you bombed Libya,
I was aware,
then moved on.
No, I was aware of what was happening there because I was working there, I was reporting on it. The UK government, the French government, other governments, they were trying to do a huge amount. There was a lot of people there. But what was happening is you had a very weak government. You had militia running all over. I mean, I've got to say, it is much more complicated.
We'll talk later in foreign policy. Naz Shah, in the first election in Bradford West, you were the third choice.
I was.
And yet you're standing here as the first choice. Why should Bradford West voters choose you if you were the third choice in your own membership?
Well, the reason why Bradford West should choose a Labour parliamentary candidate is simple, because we have real deals to offer people of Bradford West. We have lots of policies which will support that. We will increase the minimum wage. We will offer more childcare. We will bring real change to Bradford West. That's exactly why they should choose me.
But you're the third choice.
Well, that will be decided on the 7th.
According to sources in the Labour Party, you got 13 votes. If you can't convince your own party colleagues, how are you going to convince the people of Bradford West?
Well, Bradford West, it's very clear, it's very easy to convince the people of Bradford West. We've had an absentee MP for the last 3 years who's voted on 11.9% of the issues, who's earned more outside of Parliament and has 100% attendance in all other jobs in comparison to Parliament, who says EDMs have tabled more, but come on, you can, and by his own records has tabled 14 in a day. So really, it's pretty easy to convince the people of Bradford West. And in any case, what can one person do? At the end of the day, a government runs a country. You need a party, you need politics, you need infrastructure support. I will be using all of that. So it's not actually that hard to convince the people of Bradford West.
You're somebody who was in favour of the Prevent strategy, and now you're claiming you're against the Prevent strategy.
Let's be really
so much so, you took money from Prevent.
Let's be really clear.
Did you take money from Prevent?
I did not take money from Prevent. Let me be really clear.
Okay,
I was employed in 2009 as a regional director for a senior Muslim leadership development programme, which was by the BME VCS regional panel and local government Yorkshire and Humber. In 2008 and 2009, Shafiq, you know this, there was not a lot of money around in the voluntary sector. Now, when the funding came from CLG, I was appointed to deliver that programme. Now, if that programme about building capacity for Muslim women leadership positions was wrong, then I hold my hand up, it was the wrong thing to do. But it wasn't. At that time, I delivered a project which was very sought after. If we're building capacity amongst Muslim women as leaders of the future, what was wrong with that? What happened afterwards? And I will absolutely endorse that project, which was CLG funded, and there were pockets of really good work. We have people in Bradford, former Respect councillors who have now gone back to Respect, who took that money. That does not mean to say every single thing was wrong. What Prevent became was wrong, and we have made a very clear commitment that we will be overhauling it. And I'm going to be at that discussion, and I will be fighting for that overhaul. So no, I do not endorse Prevent in its entirety. I have endorsed and stand by the projects that I have delivered, and they were good projects and rightful
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت سيدنا محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة والدرجة الرفيعة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته وارزقنا شفاعته يوم القيامة إنك لا تخلف الميعاد. O Allah, the Sovereign Lord of the ever-establishing prayer and of this perfect call, grant our leader, Hazrat Muhammad, peace be upon him, the loftiest position of intercession and status above the rest of creation and the highest rank, and elevate him to the station of praise, and bless us with his intercession on the day of reckoning. Undoubtedly, you do not do anything against your promise.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम उम्मा। इंटरनेशनल सपोर्ट फाउंडेशन आपकी खिदमत में आज शाम 8 बजे लाइव चैरिटी अपील लेके हाजिर हो रही है,
जिसमें हजारों की तादाद में लोग जो हैं वो हलाक हो चुके हैं और ला तादाद लोग जो हैं वो बेघर हो चुके हैं और मिलियन की तादाद में लोग जख्मी हैं।
मोहतरम नाज़रीन, आपने हमेशा हर मुश्किल घड़ी में, मुसीबत के वक्त में इंसानियत की खिदमत की है और उम्मा चैनल के साथ आप हमेशा साथ साथ रहे। मजलूमीन की, मजबूरीन की, मकहूरीन की मदद के लिए आपका तावन हमेशा मिसाली रहा है। हम उम्मीद करते हैं आज की इस अपील में भी, जिसमें नेपाल से लेकर पेशावर और इंडिया तक लोग शिद्दत के साथ मुतासर हुए हैं, आप इस अपील में शामिल होंगे और अपना तावन पेश करेंगे। देखना ना भूलिएगा, सिर्फ उम्मा चैनल पर।
دستورنا القرآن وديننا الإسلام أركانه الجليلة دعائم الفضيلة وهي الشهادتان كعيدة الإيمان والصوم।
ये कुरान रीड पेन है। इस कार्ड पर मौजूद मुख्तलिफ क़ुर्रा हज़रात की तस्वीर सब्त हैं। दिए गए सफ़ेद रंग के आले पर मौजूद स्टार्ट का बटन दबाइए। अपने मनपसंद कारी की आवाज़ में तिलावत सुनने के लिए आले पर दिए गए उस बटन को दबाइए जिस पर कुरान मजीद की शबीह सब्त है। अब इसे मनपसंद कारी की तस्वीर पर रख दीजिए और जिस आयत नंबर को समाअत फरमाना चाहें उस पर रखिए। तर्जुमा सुनने के लिए वर्क के बाएं जानिब मौजूद इंतखाबात में से किसी एक का चुनाव कीजिए और फिर आयत नंबर पर रख दीजिए। इसी तरह कायदे का जो लफ्ज या हर्फ समाअत फरमाना चाहें या मनासिक हज और दीगर दुआओं को सुनना चाहें तो आले को उन पर रख दीजिए। वर्क को छूते ही आप पेन में नस्ब स्पीकर के जरिए हर्फ, लफ्ज, आयत, दुआ या तर्जुमा सुन सकेंगे। कुरान रीड पेन खानदान भर को कुरान मजीद की तालीम के जेवर से आरास्ता करने का आसान, सस्ता और जदीद तरीका। नुस्खा कुरान रीड पेन हर घर की जरूरत, बच्चों की तालीम का जरिया, कुरान मजीद के तलफ़ुज़ और अदायगी का बेहतरीन तरीका। कुरान रीड पेन का इस्तेमाल इंतहाई आसान। नुस्खा कुरान रीड पेन की खरीदारी के लिए अभी फोन कीजिए 0800-121-4855। नुस्खा कुरान रीड पेन खरीदिए और दुनिया और आखिरत की कामयाबी को आसान बनाइए।
किसी ने सही कहा है, जान है तो जहां है, लेकिन सेहत हासिल करने के लिए हमें बकायदा इलाज की जरूरत पेश आती है। मगर कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री थेरेपीज के इलाज की मतलाशी कहाँ जाएं, कहाँ से इलाज करवाएं? जब हर्बलिज्म की जरूरत पेश आती है तो हमेशा जहन में सिर्फ एक ही नाम आता है, जी हाँ, दारुल शफा, जो कि पिछले 46 साल से आपकी बहाली सेहत के लिए कोशां। वर्ल्ड रिनाउंड प्रैक्टिशनर जनाब नज़र राना और उनकी टीम से ब्रैडफोर्ड, बर्मिंघम या लंदन में मुलाकात के लिए आज ही राब्ता करें या फिर मजीद मालूमात के लिए हमारी वेबसाइट darulshafa.com पर विजिट करें। और हमेशा याद रखें,
दारुल शफा तजदीद की रवायत, मेयार की ज़मानत।
Visit Shop Umar online and see our full range of products from our various departments. Simply see it, like it, buy it. Men and women, child and baby, gifts and jewelry, beauty, household, electricals, toys, and much more. So visit shopumar.tv today. It's easy. Just browse, select and check out. Log on using your tablet, smartphone or computer and follow the 3 easy steps and have your items delivered straight to your door. shopumar.tv. See it, like it, buy it.
Welcome back to Debate Night with me, Mohammed Shafiq, live from the studios of my channel. We're talking about Bradford West and Celia Hickson from the Green Party. Let's talk about your party. You don't seem to have a policy to deal with the deficit. You seem to have uncosted pledges on a variety of different issues, and you will put the Britain's national security at risk by opposing nuclear trident. Your reaction?
Well, my action is dismay. I'm not sure what you've been reading. So your first point was that we don't have a policy to tackle the national debt.
The deficit?
The deficit.
What is your policy then?
Our policy is we're looking to change the way the country thinks about itself economically. We're the 6th richest nation in the world. We keep telling ourselves that we're actually not doing particularly well and that we should stop spending on things like benefits and the NHS, when actually those things count and need to be continued. Our policies are to look at the way that the country has let money leak away by large corporations not paying adequate tax evasion, tax loopholes. And yes, we don't want to invest in Trident. £150 million over the next 30 years could be far better spent in communities like Bradford West, where half the children are brought up in absolute poverty. That would be a far more sensible decision in our view. And in my view, what's a deterrent when, if you deploy that deterrent, it wipes out life on earth?
Now, in the aftermath of this election, the Green Party is one of the minor parties. You had one member of Parliament in the last Parliament. You may have one or possibly more. How would you vote in that first Queen's speech? Would you vote for David Cameron or would you vote for Ed Miliband?
We have said it'll be on an issue-by-issue basis. We're not signing up for anything with anyone. It'll literally be on the basis of what's been discussed at that time.
Whose Queen's speech would you vote in favour of? David Cameron's or Ed Miliband's?
Me personally, I'd go with Mr Miliband every time. But Caroline Lucas and others have probably made decisions on their own. We don't have a whip. That's the difference. We can exercise our own passions and beliefs and go where we please on this.
Thank you so much, Celia Hickson. George Grant, let's go back to the issue of growth. And where's this £12 billion in welfare cuts coming from?
Well,
and where's this £8 billion in NHS spending, which the Prime Minister's promised over these last few weeks? Where's it coming from?
I actually think that the Chancellor has been quite sensible in not trying to spell out every single little bit. No, and I'll tell you for why. I'll tell you for why. The Lib Dems tried that.
Well, that's what you criticise your opponents for.
The Liberal Democrats tried that with tuition fees, and look where that got them. We do not know what the outcome will be after this election.
So what will you cut? Will you cut child benefit? Will you cut child tax credits?
They're being deliberately...
No, it's not a lot.
What will you cut?
We have increased health spending by 7.3
Are you going to cut child benefit? Are you going to cut disability living allowance? Are you going to cut child credits? What are you going to cut to meet that £12 billion figure?
No, it's got to be all of the above, hasn't it?
No, not at all.
If they're going to freeze taxes for 5 years...
So, George, I think the question was addressed to...
I'm allowed to interrupt. Read your rules. You've just pledged 5 years of no tax increases. No tax increases. With these billions that Shafiq just mentioned, it has to come out of further cuts.
No.
And we all know you're going to cut disability benefit.
George,
we all know you're going to cut child benefit.
Okay, well, answer that question. What will you cut?
We spend £50 billion a year on disability benefits, and quite rightly so. 2010, we had an economy that was $2.2 trillion, pounds rather. It is now 2.5 in excess. That is £300 billion more in economic growth.
Okay.
Economic growth
I don't think you're going to answer the question. Let me ask you one more question before we move on to the other candidates. Prime Minister promised a pledge in the 2010 election to bring down immigration to the tens of thousands. What's the figure at the moment?
The figure now is over 100,000.
It's 283.
Yes, 300,000. It is a situation that you.
So you failed.
Control.
You made a promise which you couldn't keep. It's a broken promise. So why should people vote for you now?
We have a situation where in the European Union you have got free movement of people. That is the main issue here. Okay. So until you have got some sort of renegotiation on that point, we are not going to be able to. If I'm honest with you,
free movement of people.
There is negotiation on the conditions under which people can come here.
Absolutely not.
Naz Shah, how will you deal with the deficit? The £156 billion which your party left us in 2010.
If we look at what the Chancellor said it wasn't Labour who left us in the mess. It wasn't Labour. It was a banking crisis.
Sorry, 2010. What was the deficit when you left office? It was £156 billion.
And what is it now? We've cut it by 40%.
It's 90
yes, but you're still 3 years off target, George. You're still 3 years.
I find it a bit rich for the other parties to complain about.
£1.5 trillion.
I'll come to you in a second.
I find it a bit rich for
George, can I just let Naz hear that, and then I'm sure you would want to interrupt. Naz.
Yeah. We have plans in place to make sure we tax people where it needs to be taxes, whether it's non-DOMs, what announcements we've made, whether it's putting levies on the tobacco companies, or whether it's taxing the mansion tax. That will contribute to the economy, and that money will come back where it's needed the most, and we will cut the deficit year on year, and we have. We're the only party who's actually made a promise to make it legally binding that we have to meet the deficit every single year.
How can you make it legally binding?
We have.
What's the punishment?
Okay.
Exactly. What's the
George, it's Rich Harry, I'll come to you in a second. George, it's Rich from the Conservative Party, who made a pledge today that you will legalise, you will rule out any increase in national insurance, in tax levels, and you will legislate for it. So you criticise, you're about to do it yourself.
You can legislate, you can't make it illegal not to meet your spending commitments. I mean, the economy changes. What I think is rich from Labour and frankly all the other parties on this is saying that we haven't cut the deficit quickly enough. You think about the deficit like a very fat man, okay? And you've got to get him thin. You try and go too fast, you're going to kill him. You kill him.
Weight Watchers.
We are going as quickly as possible. We don't want the public services, contrary to the lies from the other party, we don't want public services to collapse. You've got to cut, but responsibly. But
you've not.
It wouldn't be a 90 billion pound debt. It would be a 500 billion pound debt.
How do you account
okay, let me bring
£5 trillion
on the
national debt?
On the economy, how would you cut the deficit, Celia?
Well, I was just
Yes,
going
I know.
to raise
I
the
can keep
point
borrowing
that,
it,
that
make
David
life easy
Cameron made the point that it was an ideologically driven. The austerity was
what do you mean by
ideologically
driven?
Because they were
having an
reducing
ideology,
the
having
power
a
of the
philosophy
state.
is not a bad thing.
Well, I understand
saying
that.
An ideologically driven cut means nothing.
But it does mean something when there are people who have been sanctioned on benefits and are struggling to feed themselves and their families. When it's a position that someone's taking in an attempt to reduce the power of
people
the
struggling to feed their families
just
in Greece,
just let
where the
Celia
economy
finish
has
that point.
collapsed completely.
Sorry?
Just let Celia finish that point. Have you finished your point?
Sorry.
Okay. Harry, how would you deal with the deficit? Or would you just blame it on the Europeans? And the European Union?
We have produced a manifesto which has been independently verified, one of the only manifestos that's been produced by any party that's been independently verified, and we can, every one of our commitments within our manifesto, we do not have to borrow a single penny, because our manifesto pledges are based on us leaving the European Union. Okay. With leaving the European Union, we save net about £12 billion a year. We also would like to cut the foreign aid budget by £9 to £10 billion a year.
So let me just pick your point up. Let me just
£25 billion.
We've just seen in the last few days that dreadful earthquake in Nepal.
Absolutely.
UKIP would cut the funding that was being sent into all these aid agencies working in Nepal.
With all due
Isn't that
respect,
disgraceful?
Shafiq,
Isn't that disgraceful?
We are confusing our
International aid
commitment being enshrined in law by the Lib Dems and the coalition of 0.7% GDP, 0.7% GDP, enshrine it in law for us commit our children to give regardless whether we can afford it or not. Right now we are borrowing £90 billion per year, right? And then we are borrowing and giving it away as foreign aid. How is that?
So those poor suffering people.
I've got 9,000 veterans sleeping rough, homeless. Okay, right now we have got 1 million people going to food banks. This sixth richest nation that's been mentioned earlier on. We can't afford to look after our own.
Okay.
Can I just say one thing?
I just want to bring George in. George, and the economy, it's the topic of this election. How? I mean, obviously, if you got elected, you would have to choose between David Cameron and Ed Miliband. Whose economic policies would you support?
Well, of course I would.
Would you support the £30 billion which Labour are also supporting, and the Tories are voting for? They're in the same lobby.
Yeah,
£30
and I
billion
voted against them. That's something that my Labour opponent would not have done, because Ed Miliband and David Cameron both voted for £30 billion worth of cuts. I voted against it. There's no need for cuts. There's no need for austerity. We have just agreed to renew a set of useless, murderous nuclear weapons. And Labour and the Conservatives are united on this. Whatever else needs to be cut, the nuclear weapons will not be cut. They cost £100 billion. That's 100,000 million pounds. If people can get their head around that waste of money. And Vince Cable, a member of your cabinet, the coalition cabinet, said that there's more than £100 billion every single year avoided or evaded in tax by the richest people and the richest corporations. And if we stop the wars, stop going around the world, setting fire to other people's countries, only to fish them out of the Mediterranean when they fall off leaking boats afterwards, we'd be in clover. We wouldn't need cuts in public expenditure. We'd be increasing public expenditure.
Okay. Thank you, Judge. I will come back to you. We're going to take a call, and I hope the caller is going to ask us a question on the economy, jobs and immigration. Let's go to Bradford and talk to Abid. Good evening, Abid.
Hello, assalamu alaikum, Brother Shafiq.
Walaikum salam. What's your question?
Right, I want to ask two questions. One to Naz Shah and one to George Galloway, if it's possible.
Are you going to ask on economy and jobs and immigration?
Well, I'm going to...
Because if it's not, we're going to have to move on.
Naz Shah is, just over 3 years ago, you were a staunch ally of George Galloway and the Respect Party. What made you change?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I've just said to our viewers, kindly, if you stick to the topic, please stick to the topic. That question, I'm sure we'll pick up when we talk about Bradford issues at the end of the show, is the economy, jobs and immigration. George, you wanted to come back in there.
Yeah, I mean, look, to link Trident, and 100 billion is over 30 years, to link that to the debt and the deficit that we are dealing with is frankly nonsensical. We have got a debt of 1.6 trillion pounds. All right, how many zeros do you want to put on that, George? Well, it requires responsible solutions. Do you understand the difference between the debt and the deficit, Harry?
You're borrowing more than you were when you started.
Do you understand that you are economically illiterate, George? You clearly don't understand the difference between the debt and the deficit.
You are borrowing more money now than you were when you started.
Can I explain for the benefit of my economically illiterate colleagues? If you have...
He's not as nice as he looks.
If you have a deficit in your household income, right, of £500 a month, and you've got a total debt of £10,000 a month, inevitably your total debt is going to be going up to £10,500. If you bring it down to £100 or even £1 the difference. So, of course, whilst there is still even £1 of deficit, your total debt is going to go up. So anyone who says, well, the debt is increasing, means nothing. The deficit has been halved as a share of GDP.
Let's talk to Naz Shah. If you were in the House of Commons in the last Parliament, and when your Labour colleagues joined the Conservative and Liberal Democrats to vote for those £30 billion cuts, how would you have voted?
Well, we have a financial envelope to meet. We are in austerity. We do.
How would you have voted on that proposal?
I would have.
Would you have voted in favour?
I would have had to. Yeah.
You would have to?
Yes.
I thought you had a conscience when you get to Parliament.
Because we have to. We would have to put cuts into place. We would not be able to speak.
So the Tory party that you criticise, you would vote in the same lobby as them to have cuts of £30 billion. And then you tell the people out there that this mess was caused by the Tories. Yet you would join the Tories in that lobby.
I would vote for cuts, but where those cuts fell, that's a different issue. I would have to vote for cuts. If we didn't have the cuts, we wouldn't be able to balance the books. And we're still 3 years off target. Let's be clear about that. Where those cuts fall is the argument. I would not be telling the voters of Bradford West that I will go in and say, I'm going to say no to all the cuts, because that would be wrong and that would be false promises. We've had enough of false promises over the last government. We cannot make any false promises. We have to be realistic. What do we have to do? We have to balance the books. We have a deficit. We have to get that right.
What should be cut?
So where will those cuts come? We asked the Conservative Party, George Osborne was asked on the BBC and other broadcasters where this £12 billion in welfare cuts would come from. We didn't get an answer. We asked him about the £8 billion in the NHS budget that he's pledged increase. We didn't know where they'd come from. So where will your cuts come from?
Well, I'm really clear about where we will be raising money from. That 100 billion.
But where will the cuts come from?
The cuts don't have to, right. The cuts don't have to be where at the moment we've got most of the deprived wards in Bradford. We've got so many in Bradford as a whole. Yeah. We don't have to cut in Bradford. We can.
We're talking about when
I'm explaining it.
Last time I looked, Naz Shah, you were standing for Parliament.
Absolutely.
And you would be standing in the House of Commons, not in Bradford City Council.
We have had 200.
So how would you cut a national deficit?
We have had more than £200 per head cuts in Bradford. We shouldn't have had them cuts in Bradford, whereas in the leafy suburbs we've had less than £50 per head. So I'd have reversed that, and I'd have made sure the cuts were where it wouldn't impact on people, where there wouldn't be more deprivation. That's how you balance it. That's equality, and that's fairness, and that's justice. Now, as it is, we don't have cuts that are equal and fair. Yes, we needed cuts, but they didn't have to impact on on those people, like bedroom tax, we didn't have to impact on those people. We were already on the breadline. That shouldn't have happened.
Harry Booter,
who brought the bedroom tax in? Who brought the bedroom tax?
It was the Tories.
But Labour took 4.5 years before they said they would scrap the bedroom tax. They supported it over the 4.5 years until they changed their mind. Now they're campaigning against the bedroom tax.
They actually voted against.
We will abolish that.
6 months ago, they voted for the first time.
Through Parliament, they did vote against.
It took them 4.5 years
George, we have made a
to say
commitment that we will
would scrap
abolish
it.
bedroom tax. That is what our
But it took you
position is.
4.5 years to do it.
Whether we did, we
Anyway, I'm
got there.
fascinated. Can we not have the camera on her all night, please? Because I'd like to hear where the £30 billion worth of cuts that she would have voted for would actually fall. Never
I
mind
just explained
leafy
that,
suburbs.
George. I
Never mind
just
the leafy
explained
suburbs.
that.
Tell us,
I've just
where would those
explained that.
cuts
I
fall?
have exactly explained that explicitly, very, very clear, but you
All you
obviously can't
mentioned was
understand
leafy
it.
suburbs.
Okay.
The 200, where would your cuts have come from? Where would
I'm against the cuts. I voted
Actually,
against
yes,
the
you
cuts.
would. You would, because you can't implement anything.
It's very easy.
Because you don't have an manifesto, George. Be clear.
Gentlemen, as much as I like the sound of your voice, I want to hear the ladies. Let the
No,
ladies
let's
speak.
be clear.
Let the ladies speak.
If your cuts weren't, what manifesto have you got, or what fiscal absolute manifesto, financial one have you got, George, which would
Don't
make
me
the
embarrass
government?
you by asking you what fiscal
George.
means.
What is it?
You
What
don't
is
even
it?
know what the word means.
Oh, and you do.
We
Of
are
course you
against
do.
the
Sorry,
cuts.
you've been
You are
doing this a lot longer than I
Guys,
have.
okay,
Please,
let's bring some order. Celia Hickson, how would you, where would your cuts come, or would you have none?
Well, our philosophy is that, like
Or
many
would you raise
other-
taxes like you've done in Brighton?
Of course, we'd have to.
You raise council tax?
Not necessarily council tax, but we would put increased taxes on the wealthy. 60% tax on anybody earning over £150,000. And the top 2% would have to contribute with a wealth tax. We've made it very clear. There are very wealthy people in this country, and at the moment they're doing very well, thank you very much. Over the last 5 years their income's doubled, whereas the poorest 40% have found themselves struggling. We need to redress the balance. It's about social justice, it's about equality, it's not about saying, well, actually, how are we going to address specific items? There are things that need to be dealt with that are far more fundamental. The way we do business in terms of the economy needs to be looked at carefully. We cannot grow forever, for instance. We are one finite planet. Growth cannot continue ad infinitum.
Harry Booter, let me ask you on immigration. Your party policy, if I'm correct, is to draw up the drawbridge, have a moratorium for 5 years.
We.
So nobody would be allowed in, regardless of the economic needs.
Our immigration policy is very clear indeed.
When a politician says very clear, it probably means it's not very clear.
we, as you know, we would like to close the borders, the open borders with the European Union, which is impossible to do, as has been told over and over again. There is no renegotiation whatsoever. Yet, Mr. Cameron is not listening to what Mr. Juncker is saying. Okay, there is no renegotiation on any of the things that you guys are proposing. Nothing, right? The only thing is out. In order to close the borders, we need to be out of the European Union. And right now, 77% of this country says, yes, we want to be out.
I don't know where you get that.
Our party.
No, come on. Give me some independent figures rather than your press release.
Well, have a look on.
No, I'm asking you. Where's that figure come from? 77%.
Well, Nigel Farage has stated it yesterday as well, and this morning he stated it that we got 77% in the European Union. So he has got the correct figures, which was I'm going with my leader at the moment.
You're going with your leader, but you don't know where the figures come from.
We're saying that we need to have an Australian style point-based system, which gives everyone around the world, not just people from Europe, who maybe whether they can speak English or not, they're allowed to come here. Yet the rest of the world, they have to be able to speak English before they get before they're allowed.
And when your leader said last weekend,
there's so much unfairness going on. These parties are being racist, not UK.
Okay, when your leader last week was asked about the issue in the Mediterranean, he said we should welcome the Christian refugees, and I prefer Indians and Australians. Isn't that racism?
The underlying what happened was there was 12 Christians that was thrown overboard by the Muslims. I think he was being sympathetic, like, look, the Christians being persecuted, and he was just...
He said he preferred to take the Christians. He preferred to take the Christians and not the Muslims.
He was, at the time, reacting to what happened with that disaster where the Muslims threw out the Christians out of the boat last week, all right, overboard and drowned them.
No, but he said he would choose Christians, and he would prefer migrants from India and Australia. What about migrants from Pakistan?
He is giving a haven to the persecuted Christians. He's saying, let's welcome the persecuted Christians. They've got nowhere to go. Okay. Let's give them a haven in our
What about immigrants from Pakistan or Malaysia or Indonesia or some of the other Commonwealth countries?
We don't have a problem with any immigrants from anywhere.
But your leader prefers Christians.
As long as we have a fair immigration policy, we do not have any problems with anyone from around the world.
Okay, we can take your live calls on 01254 277 370. Let's move on to the NHS and education. We talked about that £8 billion. George Osborne said the Labour Party and the opposition parties were giving uncosted spending pledges. And he was asked on the BBC 16 times by Andrew Marr, where's this money coming from? This £8 billion. The Lib Dems, to be fair to them, have already told you where it's coming from. Where's your £8 billion coming from?
Well, you've asked me this before, and I can't give you the answer because I am not.
Because the Chancellor's not even able to.
If the
Chancellor of the Exchequer can't give us the answer, then we're hopeless that you will.
I tried to address this earlier, and I was rather drowned out. So if I may, just say
briefly,
this. I think it actually would be pretty foolish to start laying out everything like that now, because after the election, we don't know what the outcome will be. We don't know where, if there's going to be a coalition or not, if you're going to have these confidence and supply. I think it's right to lay out an ambition for what you want to do, but in terms of saying exactly where it's going to come from, the most important thing in terms of ensuring this is funded has got to be a growing economy. I mean, I cannot emphasise that point heavily enough. Our economy is £300 billion a year bigger than it was in 2010. We did increase spending on the health service by £7.3 billion over the course of the last government, so it can be done.
Okay, let's go to Birmingham. Let's go to Birmingham and talk to Nadeem. Good evening, Nadeem.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
You've got a question on the NHS or education, I hope?
I got a question for Naz Shah. Two questions actually for her.
Is it on the NHS and education?
Education and NHS. Okay, it can be linked to education and NHS. It can. Ed Miliband announced that he's willing to spend 100 billion on Trident. Yeah, what's her view on that? And wouldn't it be better to use that money instead for education and NHS instead of Trident?
I'll give you 10 out of 10 for linking them. Thank you so much, Nadeem, in Birmingham. It's time for a break. When we come back, we'll listen to what Naz Shah has to say on Trident. Join us on the other side of this.
you looking for the perfect partner? Then come along to the Muslim Match for You matrimonial event and meet other Muslims, people looking for partners. Sunday, 24th of May, 12 p.m. till 4 p.m. at Mansell Restaurant and Banqueting Hall, 29 Bury New Road, Manchester. Tickets for only £30, includes 3-course meal and 1-month upgrade. For booking, visit our website, events.muslimmatchforyou.com. Visit Shop Umar online and see our full range of products from our various departments. Simply see it, like it, buy it. Men and women, child and baby, gifts and jewellery, beauty, household, electricals, toys, and much more. So visit shopumar.tv today. It's easy. Just browse, select and check out. Log on using your tablet, smartphone or computer and follow the 3 easy steps and have your items delivered straight to your door. shopumar.tv. See it, like it, buy it.
क्या आप शादी के मसाइल इस्लामी तरीके से हल करना चाहते हैं? क्या आप शरीयत के मुताबिक तलाक के बारे में जानना चाहते हैं? क्या आप अपने खानदानी मसाइल इस्लामी तरीके से हल करना चाहते हैं? उम्मा शरिया कौंसिल आपके तमाम सवालों का जवाब है। उम्मा शरिया कौंसिल एक मखसूस कंपनी है जो काबिल आलिम दीन उलमा हजरात की ज़ेर निगरानी अपने मुसलमान बहन भाइयों को इस्लामी शरिया के मुताबिक फतवा देते हैं। शादी, तलाक, खानदानी मसाइल, वसीयत, कारोबार और दीगर तमाम मसाइल के लिए उम्मा शरिया कौंसिल से राबता करें 01254 278 354।
GoBrit Green, your local energy efficient green deal company। आज ही अपने फ्री एफिशिएंट बॉयलर के लिए राबता कीजिए और अपने एनर्जी बिल की मद में सैकड़ों पाउंड बचाइए। आपकी एप्लीकेशन रिसीव करके चंद रोज बाद ही हमारे तजुर्बाकार इंस्टॉलर्स आपके घर में बिल्कुल नया बॉयलर इंस्टॉल करेंगे। अभी कॉल कीजिए 01254 278 354। फ्री बॉयलर, फ्री इंस्टॉलेशन। रजिस्टर ऑनलाइन at www.gobritgreen.co.uk।
Welcome back to Debate Night with me, Mohammed Shafiq, live from the studios on my channel. It's our Bradford West Candidates Special. On Monday, we'll be profiling the constituency of Burnley. That's a 9 o'clock Debate Night Special with the candidates from Burnley. On Tuesday, it's the turn of Rochdale candidates. That'll be again at 9 o'clock. And then we finish off on Wednesday, eve of poll, with the candidates from our constituency here in Blackburn. All the candidates will be coming to that as well. Naz Shah, we were talking just before the break. Nadeem, I think it was from Birmingham, asking you about this £100 billion trident. We know that because the Lib Dems and Conservatives, as part of the coalition agreement, said they would kick this to the long grass for the next Parliament to decide. If you're elected in a week's time and you're in the House of Commons, how would you vote on nuclear trident?
We have difficult choices. We have choices to make. As a government, we have choices to make. And those choices aren't always going to be easy. And on this one, we have been advised by the experts to endorse trident and stick with trident, so that's what we will be doing as a government.
And you would be supporting that?
Yes.
So you'd be voting in favour of the £100 billion trident nuclear?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope that answers your question.
Could I just ask, that was linked to the NHS, and I might as well...
yes, let's talk about the NHS.
Let's talk about the NHS, and I think it's...
Do you think that the Labour Party have weaponised the NHS here?
Yep.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No, I don't.
Yes.
I don't.
Yes.
I fundamentally disagree with that. What I feel... The NHS is very close to me because I used to commission services in the NHS, and I have a family member who's just recovered from cancer, so I know exactly what services, in terms of the services that we use. Now, we will make sure we get cancer tests within 1 week. We will make more GP appointments available within 48 hours. We will be putting more GPs in place, more midwives, and I think that is real commitment, and we have costed that out through our 2.5 billion Care to Fund, Time to Care Fund, and that is going to make a real difference to the NHS, and I think the NHS needs to belong to the people, and it was set up under a Labour government, and it needs to be, it continuously needs to belong to the people and not be privatised through the back door.
Okay, let me just ask you, Andy Burnham, your shadow health secretary, he's a former health secretary, was complaining that if the Conservatives got in for another 5 years, the NHS would be privatised. Do you know the difference between the private sector involvement between your party and the Conservative and Liberal Democrats?
I'm very clear about it. One of the first things we will do, we will repeal the Health and Social Care Act of 2014. What we will do is, the reason we will repeal that is because at the moment, chunks of the NHS, which are the most profitable, can be done by other businesses and they can bid for them. And that, we don't think that's right. We don't think we should leave the services.
No, but do you know the difference between the two private sector involvements between the two governments?
Yes, absolutely. One's for profit and one's not for profit. We want that profit
well,
to go
actually,
back into...
let me give you... Let me give you the facts. Under 13 years of a Labour government, there was 4.3% private sector involvement. Under the coalition government, the Liberal Democrats and Conservatives, it's 5.6%, just over 1%.
Exactly. If she can't answer, let me answer.
Oh, please
this
do, George.
Privatising, well, it's quite obvious. You can't answer. How can you answer that? It was Blair and Brown that began the privatisation of the National Health Service, just like it was Blair and Brown that introduced the university tuition fees. And then they complain that the Tories have marginally increased the amount of privatisation by 1%. These people cannot be taken seriously. She's dumbfounded. She doesn't have an answer. She doesn't know the answer, and if she did know it, she'd be embarrassed, presumably, to tell you.
And I wanted to come back with what George just said about the 1%. The Tories just said, we've only privatised by 1%, okay? In effect, they've carried on with the privatisation that was carried by the Labour and done it on top of that, right? So they've done it just as much.
So you would say they're all the same?
They are just as guilty as Labour as far as privatisation is concerned. And may I also say one thing? Labour, they said they are proud about beating this drum about the NHS being developed by Labour brought in the NHS. They are the ones that now put the NHS on its back with their PFI contracts, which cost this country £350 billion over the next 30 years, right? That is why the NHS is on its back. This is why people have to keep paying taxes over and over again, right, to support the NHS. We've got so much waste going on within the NHS. £333 one light bulb.
How passionate is your party on the NHS?
Very passionate. We have said that NHS will be free at the point of delivery. And Labour keeps perpetrating this lie from 2012 when Nigel Farage mentioned something about the United States kind of system, which they said we will have to look at in the next few decades, right?
Okay. So your party leader, and you say that you're passionate about the NHS.
Absolutely.
Okay. So why was it that your party leader Nigel Farage says he prefers to use private medical insurance? And he prefers to use private hospitals because he's got no confidence in the NHS.
I'm sure that I've got back problems. I've had serious back problems. Occasionally,
That's why you're sitting down today.
I have been referred to a private clinic because I could not be taken, given treatment by the NHS. So
it's not good enough for you.
There are circumstances where we're referred to by the GPs to a private doctors. So fine, it is not. He's not paying into a private health service. I don't know whether he does or not, but I assume he isn't.
No, he says that he has no confidence in the NHS local services, and he actually would prefer to go private.
He's in a serious problem like I am, and I think we just sometimes need special treatments. Okay.
Well, what about the millions who need special treatments in the country?
I can't. I'm on the NHS fully.
Does your party leader, Natalie Bennett, have private medical insurance?
Absolutely not, no. We're totally against the fact that £18 million worth of money goes into the pockets of private companies from the NHS every day. And we would fight for a publicly funded NHS that's free at the point of use for everyone. And it shouldn't matter that your need is greater You know, if you have a back problem, we should be in a position for everybody to be treated equally.
Can I just
George, yeah, please.
Just nail this privatisation canard once and for all? I mean, it's clear that Naz doesn't really understand what she's talking about on this particular issue, but I'm slightly worried by the other candidates as well. There is no privatisation. People understand that to mean completely abandoning control and it just being in the hands of a private company. That is not what has happened either under Labour or the Conservatives either. What is happening is you have outsourcing within a nationalised framework. So the clinical care commissions, CCGs, they are responsible. They are publicly owned bodies. They are responsible for making a decision if a private contractor comes along and they can provide the same service, the same quality of care for cheaper, then they can make the decision, we would like them to do that. That is really quite different. It exists under a nationalised framework. I mean,
outsourcing where the profits are going. To private companies.
If you've got a situation where you're going to save 20% on a given service and 10% of it goes on profit, you're still saving 10%. And even if, here's the other point that's important, if the CCGs, if a contractor comes along and says, we'd like to provide this service, please, and they can meet all of the criteria which are set by the NHS, and the CCG still says, actually, we would rather not, then they don't have to. So the whole thing is controlled by the NHS. And of course, GPs themselves...
Why wouldn't you put like this?
The very final point, which is
the final point, briefly.
I mean, GPs themselves, 50% of them, thereabouts, are, in effect, privatised. You know, they are private individuals who charge for a service and they are then reimbursed.
Okay,
so, you know, it is a bit of a canard, this.
Let's go to Nottingham, and Siraj is there. Good evening, Siraj.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, what's your question, please, very briefly?
Am I allowed to give my views?
No, I want a question, please.
Well, I would like to give my views. I mean,
we haven't got time. Thank you very much, Siraj. Sorry to keep you waiting there, but we haven't got time for speeches or your comments tonight. It's very much about the candidates because they're the people who are standing. So I'd rather prefer a question if you've got a question. But let's move on to Islamophobia and anti-Muslim hatred. George Galloway, you've been, as you said, in Parliament for a number of years. What have you done to raise this issue of Islamophobia and the rising tide of
Muslim hatred? Already know that I have been foremost in this country in standing up in defence of the Muslims. I told the Labour leader, Tony Blair, when he invaded Iraq just before it, a couple of weeks before it, in the Library corridor, to be precise, I told him that if you send hundreds of thousands of foreign soldiers to attack, invade and occupy a Muslim country, you'll end up with war throughout the world, including on our own streets. You will place the British state on a collision course with the Muslims. And every prevent agenda, every anti-terrorism measure, one after the other, has completely failed to deal with this problem. And the more you take that approach, the more fear and loathing and hatred of Muslims you will engender in the country. And that's why the Henry Jackson Society are here. It's why Khalid Mahmood, I mean, George is right. He's not actually responsible for most of the crimes of the Henry Jackson Society. He didn't invent the Trojan hoax. Khalid Mahmood, the Birmingham Labour MP, invented it. And he's Naz Shah's campaign manager in Bradford.
Actually,
he's been in Bradford.
Well, why are you scared of George? Why can't you address me?
We've all seen the pictures.
Why is it anybody else?
We've all seen the pictures.
You've got pictures of Saddam Hussein.
Don't force me to talk about your relationship.
What is it?
Don't force me to talk about your relationship. Khalid Mahmood.
George, why is it you're afraid of George? A 6-week woman that you've known for 6 weeks and you're going personal.
Can I just say, let George finish, and I promise you, you can respond. You can respond.
Khalid Mahmood is the author of the Trojan hoax, the Trojan horse that never was. Khalid Mahmood of the Henry Jackson Society is one of the premier witch hunters of Muslims in this country. And he's in Bradford every other day at Naz Shah's side. He's running our campaign. The Facebook pictures, the Twitter pictures, all prove it. So, we've got Khalid Mahmood in Bradford, and we've got George Grant of the Henry Jackson Society in Bradford, and we've got from across the Atlantic Louise Mensch in peripatetic, perpetual motion. And so it's obvious there's a job being done on Bradford by the Islamophobes, by the people who hate Muslims.
I'm going to have to
And
come back on that right now.
I'm the person who stands up against them.
Naz Shah, just respond to that point about the Henry Jackson Society, Khalid Mahmood, sorry.
Right.
Henry Jackson Society.
Khalid Mahmood and his links to Trojan Horse and to any other Henry Jackson
Do you reject
Foundation.
that?
No, you can ask him that.
No, I'm asking you. I'm asking you, what did you think of the Trojan Horse?
Right. No, let me answer the question which you've asked me to, and let me respond to that.
Okay, go
First
ahead.
and foremost, Khalid Mahmood is old enough to answer for himself of what he's doing in his terms of his policies. I do not speak for him. He does not manage my campaign. I have people here who manage my campaign. Yes, it is absolutely no word of a lie. It is absolutely correct that I was introduced to Khalid back in June, and that was where my political journey started. But I am a person of my own right. And in terms of saying, I absolutely, I'm shocked. I'm not actually, because that's what I expect from this type of politics, which is personalising things. I have stood up for Muslims. I have stood up for women's rights. I have stood up for Palestine. I have done what was within my capability to do that. And I absolutely take issue with that. To threatening me on live TV, don't let me talk about your personal stuff. Oh, please, what are you going to do? Pull out another Naz? What is it, George? What are you afraid of, George? Are you afraid of 6 weeks?
Guys, George, please.
Somebody you've known for 6 weeks.
Naz, let's stick to the issue.
Yeah, but issue.
There is a perception. There is a perception. The neocons like the Henry Jackson Society, the EDL, the Quilliam Foundations of these worlds perpetuate the Islamophobia in society. Khalid Mahmood is a member of the advisory board of the Henry Jackson Society.
Khalid Mahmood isn't here, and I'm not answering I'm not Khalid Mahmood's voice.
No, I'm asking about Islamophobia.
In terms of Islamophobia, there are organisations that absolutely perpetuate
like the Henry Jackson Society. And do you condemn the Henry Jackson Society for the Islamophobia?
I absolutely condemn a lot of the work that they do. Absolutely.
Celia Hickson.
So I'm going to have to
I will give you a chance. Celia Hickson. It's the rise of Islamophobia and anti-Muslim hatred. What would the Green Party do to tackle that?
Well, we believe that radicalisation is a problem for the whole of society and not just the Muslim community. And the media has a massive role to play in this. We were at hostings recently where a young woman stood up and said, why am I always made to feel Muslim before I'm made to feel British? And that was quite revealing to me. And I feel that the media really does have a question to answer about this. Why do we always find the word Muslim mentioned in news reporting and the like? It's wrong, and the vast majority of Muslims are law-abiding citizens proud of their British heritage, and we should applaud them for their reserve when all these things are kicking off.
I mean, I think the last person to go to would be UKIP. With your record,
you can come
really about anti-Muslim hatred. I started the program. Let me ask you the question. Let me ask you the program. Let me ask you the question. Gerard Button, a member of your party, senior member of your party, he sits for you in the European Parliament. He says Muslims should sign a pledge against violence.
When was that? Was that 2003, 2005?
He did it recently. He did it last year, 2014 again.
2000, did he?
Yeah.
So there are.
You have the parliamentary candidate for your party in Nottingham saying Muslims should be beaten up. You have a number of your candidates and party representatives making Islamophobic, anti-Muslim acts, and yet you sit here as a proud Muslim asking people to support UKIP.
These are abhorrent views, and wherever people have expressed kind of views like this, we've addressed it.
No, you haven't. You haven't addressed Gerard Button, have you? Well, you've not addressed Gerard Button. He still sits in the European Parliament as your member of your party.
Once I get back, I'm going to start addressing it from there on. Okay, I'll make sure that we do address these issues. But I want to say, in a wider sense, about Islamophobia, about anti-Semitism, about crimes against Christians living in countries abroad. I think we need to address the issue not in isolated. Let's put people in pockets, like Muslims in pockets, and have a separate law for them, and Jews in pockets have a separate law. We want to bring everyone under one umbrella, so everyone's treated the same, and they're accorded the same protection, no matter whether Jews, Muslims, or Christians, or anybody else.
I will come
or
back
any other faith.
to George Grant on this, but let's take a call. Let's go to Bradford and talk to Ashraf. Ashraf, I hope you've got a question for us on Islamophobia and anti-Muslim hatred.
It's not on Islamophobia, it's on something different. Is it all right? Or
what is it on?
Really, what I wanted to ask was a simple question. I don't know if it's relevant. It's just important, I feel, I mean. I just wanted to see, according to the opinion polls, it's looking more likely that there will be no one-party majority. I would like to ask a simple question to the candidate, and I want a simple, honest answer. In a hung parliament, which party would they like to go into coalition with, and why?
Okay, thank you very much. We'll ask that at the end of the programme. I think some of you have already answered it.
Yeah.
A number of you have already answered it. George, you do sense that people out there are frustrated and angry. And I've done some research into you. I've done some research into the Henry Jackson Society. I found no evidence that you've ever supported what Douglas Murray does and some of the other neocons do, to be fair to you. But do you understand why people are so angry about this organisation and the EDL and the perpetuating?
Look, I get really distressed by this, actually. I mean, I came into this election campaign with really high hopes for what we might be able to achieve, talking about the different issues. George, it is the gutter politics of the worst kind to smear all your opponents as Islamophobes. The reason I am standing in Bradford West is because I want to improve relations between Muslims and non-Muslims. But I agree actually with what Celia said. The way to do that is, I don't believe in being a champion for the Muslims. I don't believe in being a champion for the Christians. I believe in being champions for the people of Bradford. Okay. And the big problem we have is when people talk about this identity politics. I'm standing up for this community. I'm standing up for that community. Yeah. That is what perpetuates
this
the whole
is a Muslim
problem.
TV channel, yeah?
Okay. Yes, George, but I know that it's a channel that's watched by British citizens, actually. Okay. And I wish you would stop pandering.
Let's give the last word on Islamophobia to Naz Shah.
In terms of Islamophobia, we have just made a commitment to make it a hate crime, just like anti-Semitism, and I think that will go a long way in addressing the issues to be able to have it in law, and I think that's a brave step, and I think that's a brilliant step on part of the Labour Party, so I certainly welcome that, and I'll be making sure I'll be pushing that agenda.
Okay, that's what I said. We should be according protection for every faith rather than just isolating faiths into
Yes, but at the moment the Muslims don't have that protection.
Let's move on to foreign policy. I mean, let's pick up the point, George Grant. I mean, obviously somebody who's worked in Libya, the attack by Ed Miliband towards the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats were that you knew how to bomb, but you didn't know how to build and plan for peace, the aftermath. There's a criticism against you. There's a question that's come through on text. It says, did Labour and Ed Miliband's support for intervention in Libya contribute to the carnage in that country? What would you say?
I would say, I think, I want to try and take politics out of this completely. As I said earlier, I think that this was an unbelievably difficult situation. It was a choice between the lesser of two evils. And had we not intervened, personally, I think you could have had a civil war in Libya akin to what you have in Syria. I do think it's actually very simplistic to simply talk of intervention by the UK as though we are the arbiters of what happens next. We intervened in Iraq, and the result was catastrophe. We didn't intervene in Syria, and the result has been catastrophe. In 1994, we intervened to save Bosniak Muslims from Slobodan Milosevic. The result was, Dayton's not perfect, but a stabilisation of the situation there. Likewise in Kosovo in 1998. So it simply isn't the case that that intervention is always the panacea of the ills or the cause of every problem that happens next. And I think the problem is that, as I said, it's not black and white. It's often a lesser of two evils situation that you have to make on the spur of the moment.
If I can ask the candidates to be very brief on this. Naz Shah, again, it's on the text. Did Labour and Miliband's support for intervention in Libya contribute to the carnage that we see in the country today?
I think like George, I think there is lots of that work we could do. There were difficult choices, we made them. But let's look at Syria, where we didn't intervene, and Ed Miliband made sure that we didn't intervene. And I think each situation is individual.
And we saw 200,000 being killed in Syria, and you turned a blind eye to it.
I'm not convinced we turned a blind eye to it. I think if
well,
you look at
200,000 people being killed, children being named by the Assad regime, and you said, well, actually, we're not going to do anything, we're just going to make a party political point in the House of Commons.
No, because what we have unique individual circumstances of each country. We have the Arab uprising. I do not agree with George Galloway's assertion that because of Iraq we have a mess in the Middle East. I think there was an uprising in the Middle East, and let's be clear about what happened in that with Syrians. As with Tunisia, if you look at Tunisia now, they have some stability back. They have their own solutions. Why should we be going in and fixing people? Fixing things? We should be supporting people.
Libya then?
Because Libya was very, very
you just said, why should we go in?
Look, Libya,
let me ask you. You just said, why should we go in and tell them how to do it? But yet you support Libya and you don't support Syria.
Libya is a fundamental difference. No, not really, not at all. It's a contradiction I can hold really well. And it's not even a contradiction. If you look at it, Libya was about a tyranny against people. In Syria, you have different pockets.
It's tyranny against Syria. It's a dictator killing his own people.
It is, but there's different pockets of people in Syria, and there's different at the moment.
Was it not the Russian bear that was the
George Galloway, let's ask you on foreign policy, particularly on Syria. You know, you're somebody are you somebody that supports the regime?
No, I just
because people say that you support Assad.
People say all kinds of things. We just heard a Labour candidate saying she can hold her contradiction quite well. George,
was it not you who described
nonsense? Here's the situation in Syria. I'm not a supporter of the regime. I'm an opponent of their enemies. Who are their enemies? ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Saudi Arabia, Britain, France, the United States, and Israel. Sorry, I'll never be on their side. I argued from the very first day, indeed before the first day, that the only path for Syria is a negotiated diplomatic transition to democracy. And I urged the Syrian regime to call a democratic election. And if they had done so at that time, they might well have avoided this disaster. But for Naz Shah to say that she disagrees with me that the invasion of Iraq is the cause of all this, well, that's gobsmacking even by her standards. Every fool knoweth that sending hundreds of thousands of American and British soldiers to invade and occupy an Arab Muslim country has sent cascading around the world.
Iraq war was wrong, George. We agree. We do not agree. The Iraq war was fundamentally wrong.
Candidates, I'm just going to ask you, please, if you just kind of respect me, and I promise I'll get all of you on this. I won't bring you back. But let's go to you, Harry Buter. Your Legion Nigel Farage has been quite outspoken and said he blames David Cameron, Ed Miliband, Nick Clegg, and the political establishment for the carnage in Libya. Is that a view that you share?
Well, it's absolutely, it's right in front of it, right in front of your eyes. We were against intervention in Syria. We did not want to intervene in there. It was quite right, and we supported that. And what he said, the carnage that was left behind, you can leave a vacuum. You do something, you leave a vacuum in Libya, and then you walk away. There are people waiting, there were people waiting to jump into that vacuum, and that is exactly what's happened. Now we've got such atrocities going on with people trafficking going. I just heard a program when I was coming back here on Radio 4. People trafficking at such a scale, it has become a global centre for people trafficking, that place.
Thank you very much. I promise we'll come back and hear from Celia as well and George as well on that. We still need to talk about Palestine, and then we want to talk just about the issues in Bradford towards the end of the show, plus closing statements, and we might take a few more of your calls. If you want to join the discussion on Twitter, it's official Ummah CH with the hashtag election on Ummah. Join me on the other side of this.
Ad-Dabbagh Welfare Trust is a global charity formed in England in 2011. Its sole purpose is to help those less fortunate who are in need of your financial aid. Many projects have been set up across the globe, including income generation like micro-businesses, so communities can help themselves. These projects include seed fertilizers, goat farming for milk, rickshaws, sewing machines, and many others. Donors choose exactly where they wish to donate, and it's a 100% donation policy. For more details, please visit our website.
It's time to experience the future of smart cleaning with a lightweight, multifunctional X5 vac. It's the easy-to-use, super lightweight, cordless, maneuverable, and transformable cleaning machine that's a total of 5 cleaners in one. First, it's a lightweight stick vac. It's completely cordless, weighs just over 3 pounds, and goes where your full-size vacuum can't. It easily sucks up dirt and debris from carpet, and no matter what the mess, the X5 vac gets it all. Tired of dragging that heavy vacuum up the steps and stairs and trying to clean them is a nightmare? Not anymore. The X5 vac makes cleaning stairs a breeze. It's the lightweight, easy-to-use cleaning solution that picks up and doesn't break your back. The X5 vac feels as light as a broom, but has the power of a vac. Plus, there's no bags or filters. Just click to empty and you're ready to go. The X5 vac's European design dynamic motor never loses suction and has the power to pick up all kinds of messes. Why reach for a broom when you can clean it up fast with the X5 vac? Second, the X5 vac easily breaks down into a handheld vac for quick jobs in and around the house. Attach the crevice tool to suck debris out of the tightest places, and it even fits between the washer and dryer. You'll also get the bristle nozzle for cleaning drapes and fabrics. And it rotates so you can remove dust and pollen so your house stays cleaner and helps keep your family healthier. Attach the flexible extension hose with the crevice tool to clean those mystery messes that build up between the cushions of your couch or love seat. And since it's lightweight and cordless, take it outside to easily clean your car, truck, boat, or RV. Third, attach the amazing patent-pending dusting dome. This included X5 exclusive will revolutionize the way you clean. The encapsulated soft bristles and vortex suction loosens and vacuums up the dust so you don't spread it around or breathe it in. It's perfect for chandeliers, collectibles, expensive electronics, blinds, and more. Fourth, does your vacuum do windows? With one simple click, the X5 vac goes from a dry vac to a wet vac. Attach the squeegee tool and create an amazing glass and hard surface cleaner. Just spray or wash the surface and watch as it sucks up the liquid to get a streak-free shine on windows, glass, or mirrors. You can even use it to quickly remove accidental spills from floors or countertops. And fifth, the X5 vac can be used as a spot and stain remover. Just attach the liquid lifter to help stop a spill from becoming a stain. Unlike paper towels that push the stain into the carpet, the X5 vac uses the power of suction to quickly and easily lift stains and make them disappear like magic. You can even suck up an emergency spill. It's the portable powerhouse that lifts, sucks, and fits in the palm of your hand. That makes a total of 5 cleaners in one.
क्या आप शादी के मसाइल इस्लामी तरीके से हल करना चाहते हैं? क्या आप शरीयत के मुताबिक तलाक के बारे में जानना चाहते हैं? क्या आप अपने खानदानी मसाइल इस्लामी तरीके से हल करना चाहते हैं? उम्मा शरिया कौंसिल आपके तमाम सवालों का जवाब है। उम्मा शरिया कौंसिल एक मखसूस कंपनी है जो काबिल आलिम दीन उलमा हजरात की ज़ेर निगरानी अपने मुसलमान बहन भाइयों को इस्लामी शरिया के मुताबिक फतवा देते हैं। शादी, तलाक, खानदानी मसाइल, वसीयत, कारोबार और दीगर तमाम मसाइल के लिए उम्मा शरिया कौंसिल से राबता करें। 01254 278 354।
Welcome back to the last segment of this debate night special, live from the studios of Ummah Channel here in Blackburn. We're talking about Bradford West, and just during the break we had Nick Clegg, the Deputy Prime Minister there, from the leader of the Liberal Democrats. Obviously we haven't got Liberal Democrats, so we showed you an interview I did with Nick Clegg at the beginning of this campaign. He was here in the northwest. He was in Cheadle, which is the constituency which they fight in, the Conservative Party, setting out what he thinks are the important issues in this election from a Liberal Democrat perspective. So we hope we're giving you some political balance there. If you want to know more about the candidates standing for the Liberal Democrats, you can log on to the Liberal Democrat website, libdems.org.uk. Let's just move on. There's a question here for you, Naz Shah, around Palestine. It says, your leader Ed Miliband said he was a Zionist. Do you back him?
If he said he was a Zionist, absolutely not, because at the end of the day, what I believe is that Ed Miliband is not a Zionist. It's not something that I would sign up to. I am very clear that Ed Miliband is the person who ensured that we voted for Palestine, a state in Palestine, and our absentee MP didn't vote on the issue of Palestine. Definitely. He didn't vote for it, and I think that's absolutely fundamentally wrong. So yeah, I don't.
Can we get that clear?
Yep, let's do it.
Is he a Zionist or is he not a Zionist? He said he's a Zionist.
My understanding of a Zionist is that somebody who does not believe in a two-state solution.
No, he said
I think
he's
your
a Zionist.
actions speak louder than your words.
No, he said he's a Zionist.
But he has also led the vote for a two-state solution, which you haven't voted on, George.
Because I'm against it. Why would I vote for something that I'm against?
So
I believe that Palestine should be free from the river to the sea. Well, you say you agree, but you've just said
we have to have a two-state solution. We have to have a peaceful solution, George. You can't.
I know the contradictions are the name of your game. Do you support a two-state solution, or should Palestine be free from the river to the sea? Perhaps you don't know what that means. The river
I am very clear.
To the
we have voted on Palestine being recognised, and it is not recognised at the minute, and that is a fact.
So I'm against it. I'm against it.
Recognised.
Oh, stop barking and let me speak,
George.
It is not a solution. That's why I'm against it. I believe in one democratic
What would happen to the Israelis who live in Israel
They continue to live there, just not in somebody else's house, just not on somebody else's land. It would be a binational state called Israel-Palestine, Palestine-Israel, according to your taste. That's the only thing that actually is a solution.
So what's
the other things pretend to be solutions.
Let me ask you a question, George. In any future vote in the House of Commons, in the next Parliament, because when I spoke to Ed Miliband last week, in my interview, which we'll show you hopefully next week, Ed Miliband said that if he was elected as Prime Minister, one of the first things he would do was encourage the British government to formally recognise a Palestinian state.
Absolutely.
You would vote against that?
No, of course not. But the motion that was before the Parliament recognised the state of Israel. And I don't recognise it. It's an illegitimate state, a European settler colonial state, a terrorist state, an illegal occupier state, a possessor of illegally acquired nuclear weapons state.
Do you recognise the state of Syria, George?
You, of course, from the Henry Jackson Society, are the main world propagandists for Israel. Now, Naz will be grateful, I'm sure, of your defence, but the people watching this programme know her journey began last June, she tells us, after meeting Khalid Mahmoud. Well, my journey began on Palestine in 1975.
No, my journey with Palestine began a lot earlier, George. A lot earlier.
God gives me breath, I will fight for the rights of the Palestinian people.
Okay, I want to give George
I'm fed up of Mr. Galloway accusing anyone who opposes him of being a Zionist. It is absolutely ridiculous. If by a Zionist you mean, do I believe in a state of Israel? If by a Zionist you mean, am I apologist for everything that Israel does, then absolutely not.
If you believe in the state of Israel, you're a Zionist. So why are you offended?
I'm not offended. I'm offended, no, because I'm offended because Zionism today means, in people's minds, the connotation is that you're an apologist for everything that the state of Israel does. That is clearly
how much did you spend on your education? A Zionist,
that is what
a Zionist is a supporter of the state of
Israel. Unequivocally.
Fine. Everyone heard you.
But I think I would like to say this.
Yeah, please.
A one-state solution is cloud cuckoo land. There is no one who is going to accept that on either the Israeli side or the Palestinian side. Okay, you have to have a two-state solution because fundamentally, it's good, fair enough, Mr. Galloway, pontificating on these matters as he does so often, but unless the people actually living in the land accept the outcome, it's dust for the fairies.
Okay, let's go to Bradford. Shabazz is in Bradford. I will come back to the other two candidates very shortly. Shabazz is in Bradford. Good evening, Shabazz.
Hello?
Yes. Can you switch your TV volume off, please, sir?
Just 1 second.
I haven't got a second. Let's move on. Celia, let's move on to you. Celia, on Israel and Palestine, this is obviously something following the Gaza war, in which 2,000 people were killed last year. There is a sense that the international community just stood by and watched it happen. What would the Green Party do to highlight the issue of the struggle of the Palestinians?
Well, we're a party of peace, as is well understood, and we seek a peaceful solution. And I know that sounds trite, but both sides have to recognise the limitations of the other, and the aggression by the Israeli government in Gaza should be condemned. And we would suspend the EU-Israel Association Agreement because of their continuing breach of international human rights law. But we would hope, in the longer term, for a solution that Israelis and Palestinians can live peacefully in a confined space. That's the problem, isn't it? There's too many people in a confined space.
Harry Booty, if you were elected as MP for Bradford West, would you encourage or would you stop the UK government from selling arms to Israel, who then use those arms to kill innocent Palestinians? That's the allegation.
Can I let me give you what the party says as far as the Palestine and Israel
you have a policy?
We seek a two-state solution as a party. As far as my opinions and my own personal opinions, I was very sickened when I saw it kind of really did something when I saw the leaders of the world united came together in France after Charlie Hebdo affair, okay? And yet we see killings going on enormous scale in Palestine, right? And not a single leader has gone down there as to bring together solidarity together in that region. They just turn a blind eye, yet they can get together for a cartoon magazine and not see the plight of the people, which is so huge, so enormous, the impact of it on these people, and they can't get together. I would love to see every single leader unite across the dividing lines of Palestine and Israel and stand there until they find a solution. That's what they should be doing.
And how would you deal with the conflict that just happened last summer? How would you stop those innocent children that were killed on the beach and all these other homes that were destroyed?
The statement I've just made there, when the leaders of the countries turn the blind eye because they know where the power around the world lay somewhere, which we know what it is. Okay, that's causing the inaction of the West, of these countries, to act against Israel when they do things. Right? We'd like to see for them to come together and sort this out as leaders of the world and not be left to one side. Palestine needs to be sorted out. Right? It's their land. It is their land that was given over in 1948, okay, and that needs to be dealt with by the people who perpetrated that.
I discovered something today that the UKIP has a Friends of Palestine.
Yes, why not?
Okay.
They also have a Friends of Israel. Respect will never have a Friends of Israel.
I think we need to start.
All the major parties.
In order to start. Can I just say one thing, right?
I'm just
one thing here.
Just one thing.
In order to start, I know he is. In order to start resolving conflicts, right? You can't cause divisions. You have to reach out to both parties equally in order to bring solution together.
Okay.
All right. That's what you should be doing.
Naz Shah, final question to you, because I've been criticised by some people on Twitter because I've been too hard on you. I don't know where they get that from, but I just want to ask you, you obviously, your campaign, I think I saw you at one of the protests, was it last year, during the Palestinian conflict?
I led the convoy to the BBC for
So you've got an involvement. What would you do differently to what George Galloway is doing in Parliament?
I would vote That's what I would do. I would cast my vote. I would make sure it counts. What I would also do is lobby people. If you can't change things on your own as one person, we can shout as much as we want. There's a place for activism. There's an absolute place for activism. There's an absolute place for protesting. There is, and that's our civic right and that's our civic duty. However, we also have to engage in conversations. Until we don't engage in them conversations, we will not achieve the change that we seek. We must bring people on that. If you look at Sir Gerald Kaufman, he was a Zionist. He was, you know, we're hoping he's going to be coming down to Bradford, but he is one of the biggest advocates now. So people can change. He's an absolute example of that change. So why wouldn't we want to change and bring people along on that journey to recognise what is happening in Palestine is absolutely fundamentally wrong, as it is with any other places that are occupied. What is happening, it's wrong. It's fundamental. It's not right. You've got people in an open prison. That is not right. You've got children dying. You've got people being killed. We're privileged in this country. We're privileged. I wake up and I see my kids don't have their limbs ripped apart. That means something to me. That's real. That's reality over there. It's not a reality that we should be able to sit back and live with.
Okay, let's take a call. Let's go to Bradford and Dr. Azhar. Good evening, Azhar.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. Yes, what do you like to say?
Yes, well, I'd just like to ask a question about the last incursion that happened in Gaza by the Israeli army. I'd just like to ask us, it's just a simple question really, and I think the viewers like to hear the answer from all of them. Do they regard that as genocide, women and children being killed? That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. One word question, yes or no. Celia, would you recognise that as a genocide?
Yes.
Naz?
Absolutely.
George?
Absolutely.
Yep. Sorry, George Grant.
Not as a genocide, no.
I'd say yes.
Harry?
Yes.
George Galloway?
Yes, they're trying to wipe the Palestinians off the
thank you.
land.
One word questions. Thank you. Answer, sorry. Let's move on. Bradford. Whatever your views are, and there are many thousands of you watching this from Bradford tonight that want to talk about Bradford. So let's talk about Bradford in the last few moments that we have. Celia Hickson, what would the Green Party do differently for the people of Bradford West?
We are passionate about education, and education is something that Bradford needs addressing and addressing urgently. The current situation we have where young people aren't achieving needs to be reversed rapidly, and we would look to improve the way good schools are supported and the way that schools who are underachieving are supported similarly. There's a requirement for attracting good teaching staff into Bradford. Educational attainment is something that we would be looking to improve, because with a more educated, more employable workforce, the economy can obviously benefit in the longer term.
Okay.
So our primary focus would be education in the first instance.
Thank you very much. Naz Shah, positively, what would you do for the people of Bradford on local issues, obviously? And I appreciate that you've been knocking doors for the last few weeks, and all five of you will be masters about what people in Bradford West need. For those that haven't met you just yet, what would you do? What would you do for the people of Bradford West?
On a local level, the education system, that would be a priority for me. It would be a priority because my children are at school, and my daughter's just going to be going into a secondary school now, and the standards need to be improved. We have just accepted the recommendations in the council by Professor Woods, who turned around the London. I am not a career politician. I am a community activist by background. I have 20 years of experience of fighting for women's rights. What I will do for Bradford West and the people of Bradford West is really clear. I will vote on the issues that matter. I will have an attendance which is much better than the last absentee MP we've had. I will vote on the issues. It's not just about tabling EDMs, it's about actually being part of a solution. So on Palestine, I will be there to vote for the recognition of Palestine. I will be there pushing to make sure that we do make Islamophobia a hate crime, like we have said we will, and Ed Miliband has given that commitment. We will be tackling issues that affect the communities of Bradford West absolutely head on, and I will do that with the support of a big party, with the support of infrastructure, finance, to make sure we bring money and investment into Bradford, change the education achievements in Bradford attainment, and create skill sets and meaningful engagement. I think Bradford has its own
solutions. Thank you very much indeed. Celia Hickson from the Green Party.
It's easy to dismiss the Green Party as a wasted vote, but I'm here to tell you that it absolutely is not. This year, the Green Party became the third largest party in England, with more members than UKIP and the Liberal Democrats. And our policies have really started to resonate with people. People are starting to realise that the only wasted vote is a vote you don't believe in. Tactical voting has brought us nothing but broken politics and politicians that promise the world but deliver only for the richest in society. Caroline Lucas, our Green MP for Brighton, has been able to show exactly what one MP can do if they really want to, whether that's challenging spending £100 billion on replacing Trident nuclear weapons or bringing the railways back into public ownership, or having really ambitious policies to tackle the climate crisis. Imagine just what we could do with more Green MPs in Parliament.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's move on. George Grant.
Well, it is easy to oppose things when you don't have to take responsibility for anything. It's easy to promise things when you don't have to deliver on those promises. I think it is a crying shame that we have had no time at all to talk about the issues that matter to Bradford West this evening, because fundamentally that is what matters to people here. Do they have a livelihood? Do they have a job? We have cut unemployment in this city by 30% in the past 12 months alone, but unemployment here is still 3 times the national average. We need to be doing so much more, and we need an MP, frankly, who will focus on these things. International issues are important. What happened in Gaza last year was quite possibly a crime against humanity. But what we cannot have is an MP who tables EDMs all he wants, but isn't there in Parliament voting on the issues that matter. I want to be that. I want to be a positive voice for this city. Okay. And that is what I will have if you elect me on the
Harry Booter.
Thank you. I started off earlier on by saying that I have a great deal of respect for the gentleman on my right, on my left again, George. George is he's a very well-known orator. He's a seasoned politician, but from my perspective, I don't think he's suited for the needs of Bradford. And I put myself forward here to bring Bradford together. As an old Bradfordian, I've come back to put Bradford back on the map, and inshallah, I'll be the person who should be doing that for you after 7th of May.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, George Galloway from the Respect Party.
Well, Naz Shah came bottom of the poll in the Labour selection, and everyone watching the programme now knows why. This is going to be a hung parliament, a parliament in which debate, speeches, argument, reason, intellect and experience matter. And I think that you've seen enough this evening to know which of the two main candidates in this election, between me and Naz Shah, has that. We have 6 demands that I will table in front of Ed Miliband, which are the price of my putting him into Downing Street. If you want to know them, go to respectparty.org.
George Galloway, thank you so much. Harry Booter, George Grant, Naz Shah and Celia Hickson, thank you so much to them for coming all this way from Bradford to Blackburn. We thank them. We thank you all who've watched it. On Monday, 9 p.m, we move on to Burnley, next door here, another marginal constituency. But for me, Mohammed Shafiq and the whole team, thank you for joining us. Good night.